Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Research Notes. In today's discussion, I am hosting Christopher Edyegu, who is experienced in lecturing and research. So far, Chris is currently lecturing a Chinese law and investments in Africa course at the University of Cape Town. He is the Africa editor at the China Global South Project, a leading independent multimedia organization. Chris is also an analyst at Africa Risk Consulting, which specializes in African market intelligence, country briefings, as well as corruption consulting. In terms of academic accolades, Christopher is finalizing his PhD at UCT, where he also attained a master's in international relations. He also holds an amazing 3 degrees from Stellenbosch University. Chris, thank you so much. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me, Primrose. It's an honor to be here today.
Oh, you're most welcome. So, for this discussion today, I will dedicate more time to you speaking, of course, guided by questions. And my first one to every guest is to say, can you share with us what is your field of study and how did you get to where you are today academically? I defined which degrees you've studied, but people want to know more from the horse's mouth.
Thank you so much, Primrose, for that question. So mainly, my field is international relations. This is mainly what I've been studying, most of my life. But right now I'm doing a PhD in political studies, but focusing on international relations. But generally, I'm looking at China and Africa. That's the main focus of my thesis. So you can see it's very international relations. This is at the University of Cape Town. As you said, I also got my master's from here, and my master's was in international relations as well. And then before that, I was at Stellenbosch, where I did three qualifications. That was an undergraduate degree in international studies.
Mm-hmm.
Then I did an honors degree in history. Then I did a diploma in marketing. And then I moved to UCT, where I did my master's in international relations. And now I'm doing a PhD. So this journey was not deliberate. I knew at the end I wanted to do a PhD in international relations.
Okay.
It's just the journey to get there was a bit up and down. As you can see, there's so many different qualifications that I did.
Indeed.
But ultimately, at the end, I wanted to do a PhD in international relations, and that's what I'm doing now. So that's how I kind of got to where I am now. So as you said, when I'm done, this will be my fifth qualification and hopefully my last one for the foreseeable future.
Oh no, learning never ends. We'll see you signing up for all those online courses now. Hopefully, actually.
We shall see. Yeah.
Awesome. So you've mentioned a wide range of qualifications, most of them, I think, are dominantly in the social sciences. How did this help you to build up towards your PhD journey?
Oh, thank you for that question as well. As you've mentioned, I've done different qualifications in international studies, in history, in marketing, in international relations. And so these are all a bit different degrees, but they're also interrelated in some aspects. For example, history and international relations and international studies, they're all not that very different. So because they're almost interlinked, they contribute to each other, but at the same time, they all have different methods of teaching and different methods of research. Okay. So this helps me with my PhD, because in PhD, you have to do a lot of research, you have to do a lot of analysis. And if you have experience in various fields and various disciplines, it helps you with research and helps you also with teaching, which is something that I do as well. So I found that I would incorporate some of the knowledge that I got from history, from international studies, from international relations, in both my PhD degree right now, but also in teaching as well. And like I mentioned before, this journey wasn't deliberate. I wouldn't have chosen to go exactly the way I did, but in the end, that's the way it went, and it helped me in the end. So I'm grateful for those experiences, but ultimately, I think it's helped me to be able to be a more well-rounded person in both teaching and research.
I always say to some of my friends, I feel like international relations or international studies is history glamorized, you know? And that applies to a lot of social sciences, because you spend a lot of time giving the background.
Mm.
And also, even when you are writing, for example, whether it's China-Africa relations, it's history in the making. But we've categorized and
Yes.
classified these disciplines. And I think the major difference is the theories you might have to use. I also
Yes.
had a run around, even though I was at UCT only. My honors was in gender, my master's was in international relations, my PhD was in politics, and my father was just like, what are you? And I was just like, well, I'm going to be a doctor of politics. Anyone wants to
Mm.
go to UCT, we are into international relations, but the PhD is
Mm.
only in politics. So it's your specialization that is international relations oriented, but the PhD will be awarded in the field of political studies.
Yes, yes, yes. But I think for both of us, I think ultimately that's maybe the beauty of the humanities, because you can still, I mean, you can take different journeys, but still end up where you want to go. So like history, gender, like all the things I've done.
Yes.
So I think that's the beauty about it. And I think I appreciate that because I was able to get back into the international relations field. But I think if I was in a whole different faculty, that might not have been possible. So I think humanities has that's nice about humanities.
So I'm going to move on to my third question of the day. What are you currently focusing on for your PhD research?
So my PhD right now focuses on Chinese investments in Africa. Without going in too much detail, I'll just keep it simple. So I'm looking at the involvement of China and Chinese companies in African manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
So Africa currently ranks very low in terms of manufacturing, in terms of how much it contributes to global manufacturing. I think it's about 2 to 3%. And Australia on its own is almost the same amount, 2%. So one country, Australia, almost contributes as much as Africa does to global manufacturing or global trade. And this is a big problem for Africa. So a lot of African countries are looking at China or Chinese entities and companies to help them develop their manufacturing sectors. So I'm looking at what's the impact of that, who benefits from this relationship. So there's different dynamics into this trend of Chinese companies moving in Africa, and I look at that in my thesis. So Ethiopia is the main focus of my studies, but there's also other African countries that are looking at Chinese companies to help them improve their manufacturing sectors. And I think looking at manufacturing, I think is quite interesting at the moment because as you know, in the past few years, Africa's implemented the free trade agreement. And a large part of this free trade agreement is to boost manufacturing and to boost intertrade between African countries. So in order for African countries to boost interregional trade or trade between each other and also trade with the rest of the world, they need to manufacture more. So I think my thesis would fit nicely within that context. But also, I also chose this particular topic because as an African, it pains me a lot to see how far behind our continent is, particularly when you look at what other continents like Asia are doing, who are also at some point were quite far behind in terms of development. But look at how much they've achieved. And so hopefully my research will be able to help African leaders and future researchers on how we can develop our continent together. So ultimately, I think the reason why I did my thesis is because I want to see how I can contribute to making my continent a much better place.
Thank you so much. And I wish you all the best as you finalize your thesis and take a break from the arduous PhD journey afterwards.
I definitely need it.
Yes. So I like that you already gave a highlight on the possible impact of your research. And I like that you are aware that this information is needed by governments or maybe key players in the areas of trade and investments. What else are you working on, and why is it important to be versatile as a researcher?
Thank you for that question as well. So I'm involved in several different roles or jobs. So in addition to working at the university where I'm doing my PhD and also where I'm teaching as well, I also work in a bit of in journalism and also in due diligence and market intelligence. So one of the companies you mentioned is the a China Global South project that looks at Chinese engagement across the Global South. So that's more journalism. So we look at Chinese activities in Africa, in East Asia, around Asia, and generally the Global South. So it's more journalism, writing articles, publications. And so that forces you to be up to date with what's happening every day. So we try to keep everything fresh. So you have to be very alert because at any moment, breaking news can happen or something big can happen. But it's not just especially in the field of China, it's not just the big things that matter. Also, the very tiny, small details or developments are also quite important. So with this job, we look at every facet, basically, of Chinese engagement in the Global South. And then, so that's more within journalism. And then my other role is within what we call due diligence or market intelligence. But also with this job, we look at more, without giving too much information, but we look at if clients have particular research that they want you to do in terms of companies or in terms of countries, we would do that. But we also look at country briefings, or we do country briefings where we write reports on how each country is doing economically in Africa. And so that's quite an interesting job as well. And I find that all the things help me to keep, because they're so different, they build different skills. You know, they help you with research, they help you with keeping up to date with what's happening. So I find that all these different roles have kept me not just up to date, but very, I don't want to say the word, it keeps you intelligent, but it keeps you learning all the time.
Definitely.
And I think that helps particularly with research, because with research, particularly for me who also teaches, if you're up to date with research, it helps you with your teaching. But also, if you're researching, you can use that same material for your teaching as well. So it kind of feeds into each other quite well. So I find that even though they're all different, journalism, market intelligence, teaching, they still build into each other or feed into each other. I've lost count of how many times I was writing a report for one company and then I had to use the information from the other research that I was doing with another company. Or for example, when I'm teaching, I'll refer to countries that I wrote about in my other marketing intelligence work, but also look at work that I did for China, Africa. So everything just fits in nicely together. So it keeps you quite up to date, keeps you knowledgeable. So I think as a researcher, all these different things help you quite a lot. At least for me, that's what it's done. And the good thing about this is that depending on how I feel after PhD and after everything else is done, I can choose which of these careers that I want to take.
Exactly.
So it opens different pathways for me to take. So I think, at least in the way I look at it, that's how it all fits in together nicely.
I really applaud you for all the work that you're doing. And I think it's important right now. We've got people that are hearing that you have to put in more work. If you got people that are PhDing are just PhDing,
no, it's
so much work you do. And it's true that we need skills outside. You mentioned media linked work. The media is known as the fourth estate. We can never run away from it. And it does keep us on our feet. It would be embarrassing not to know how to analyze what's happening, particularly when you're looking at a region that always has a hive of activity happening. So mentioned consulting, and I think in consulting you've got a different base in terms of your clients, right? And they look for specific information. And I think that's really good. Students who don't want to be in government or in an NGO can end up working for a country in market intelligence. I think that's one of the words you used, or in risk consulting. So it also opens up space for the types of jobs you can do. I think that's really important.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. You were mentioning teaching, and I think some of my viewers or my YouTube stalkers will have met you at some point at the University of Cape Town. So also personally, the first time I got to know about you, it was because you were a teaching assistant and you have lectured a wide range of courses that are classified under international relations and more recently trade law. Why do you teach, and why is it important to do both research and teaching?
So yes, I do lecture as well. So this semester I'm teaching Chinese investments in Africa and Chinese law
Yes,
here within the law department at the University of Cape Town. And like I said, it focuses on Chinese investments in Africa. What are the implications of it? What's the history? What does it mean for the future? So I
mm,
think this is a very important course. And I actually think that every university should have a course on China or even on the United States, because Chinese involvement in Africa is quite a very important thing, even though a lot of people maybe don't talk about it or teach it.
of course.
But China is Africa's largest trading partner and will probably remain for a long time. And
Mm,
this relationship between China and Africa is quite an important one. So I feel that at least every university should have a course on that. And many universities don't even have a course on Africa United in the United States
yes,
relations. So I think definitely, I think there should be a course on that, even if it's not just China, but China, Africa, or China, Africa, United States, and something along those lines. So I think this is quite important. But I've also taught within international relations generally. What is international relations? What are the theories of international relations?
mhm.
You know, that kind of stuff. How does Africa fit within international relations within the field of theories of international relations? So it links back to what I was studying. But also, like I also mentioned earlier, I feel that research and teaching feed into each other.
Mhm.
When you teach, you have to keep up to date with the latest research. So, for example, I use China Africa a lot because that's what I'm teaching at the moment. You have to keep up to date with what's happening in China, Africa, or China, Global South, or China across the world, because things happen every day. Something that happened last week, by next week could be outdated. So you
Mm,
always have to be on top of your game. So, for example, with the teaching that we did this semester, when I taught it, that information was up to date, but just this past month, some of the policies, China's updated some of their trade
wow.
policies. So that's already made what I taught outdated. So you have to keep up to date with research, because research helps you, I think, with teaching for sure. At the same time, if you teach, it also helps you with research as well. Because like if you're teaching, it can give you ideas on what to research on what to improve on. So for example, when I was teaching now, a lot of the content talked about was debt, because several African countries uh, have some debt that they owe to China.
Of course.
And so as I was teaching it, I kept on building interest in this area. So I'm thinking, how can I research more on China, Africa, and particularly in terms of debt? What I want to know, how many African countries have debt to China and how much do they owe China? But not just only China, but also in terms of the debt that African countries hold to Western states or to Western states or to other countries. So I feel like by teaching, it also opens up new areas of research that you might not have thought about before. So I think they definitely fit into each other quite well. Mhm.
Definitely. I hope I'm not cutting you out here, but I just
Mhm.
wanted to add from my personal experience, the
Mhm.
first time I taught was mostly to gain experience and also for the money I needed it as a researcher.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
But I
That's all
found
of
that
us as well.
definitely it's not a lot of money, guys. If anyone thinks, let me just
It's
tutor
really
for
not.
life. Yes.
Mm.
So I was always scared of theories. And when I was challenged to teach on theories of international relations during my PhD, it helped me because I had a chapter on theories of international relations in my PhD thesis. So while explaining to students, while engaging with more people on these topics, and
Mm.
while needing to do more reading on it, I actually
Mm.
sharpened my skills. And it's a
Yes,
chapter I'm
yes.
now proud of.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Same thing happened to me as well. Because there will be times where you have to teach something that you don't know very well. So it forces you to go and read up on that and to really study it quite well. So that's also very true as well.
Yes. And I don't want to embarrass myself in front of students. I'm like, I need to master this.
No, you don't
Yeah.
have to embarrass yourself. We all go through that.
Yeah, definitely. Also, something you said about teaching and research that came to mind in my case as well is getting new areas of research. Because usually when we do PhD or masters, you tend to follow a passion project. but you
Mhm.
realize new things from
Yes,
these new concepts and topics and engagements
yes,
from
yes, yes,
teaching.
yes, absolutely. That's definitely true. It does open new avenues or new topics of interest that you might not have thought about before, but will definitely help you in your research journey and your career as well.
Awesome. Okay, now we're coming to a part that makes me a bit nervous. Before we part, I always ask all our guests if they've got any question or questions for me. So, Christopher, would you like to ask me something?
You don't have to worry. I don't have a very tough question. It's more,
Hectic. I'm already worried.
yeah, but I think this research notes series, I think it's quite a interesting and quite a unique idea. I haven't seen many of them, at least in my own experience. So I'm more curious, what's your interest behind creating this series, and what do you hope to gain from it?
So initially, the research notes came about when I was thinking how I need to add to my content creation by speaking to other people who have followed academic paths, whether similar or different to mine, but
Mm,
that will be able to share why they're doing what they're doing, the lessons they learned from their journeys, because I want people to learn more from just me, right? But obviously they will be learning through me because I'm facilitating this discussions. So that's why
mhm,
I created Research Notes, the series. And I've discovered in trying to look for participants that I have a bias because the most people that I know are in the social sciences, or more people that are likely to agree to come through, are people I engage with on a regular basis that are in teaching and academic research. But ultimately, I want to engage also with people that do research outside academia so that people don't feel like, this channel is just about academics, which is
mm,
why it's research notes, because it's really broad so that people can know what they can do in terms of careers in research.
yeah.
Um, my last point to answer your question would also be I will have participants from the sciences as well as from law. I'm hoping to also get people from the Faculty of Commerce. Haven't
Mm.
gotten any luck with people from the health sciences and engineering. So if they're there, please do shout out. So basically, it's about demystifying the world of research to anyone who's
Mm.
interested, and maybe people that just want to listen to anyone more than just me. Yeah.
No, it's definitely a good start, I think, because, like you said, you've started off quite well already with more focused on research and people within humanities. But as the time goes on, you will get different people as well. So I think it's a very good start, and eventually you'll have different guests as well. But I think the start is quite important. So I think it's a very good start.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your support as well, both as a viewer, hopefully a subscriber, and also, as a participant in this interview. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any last words for our viewers and listeners?
So I'm not the best. I wouldn't call myself the best giver of advice.
Mm-hmm.
But I always found, or what people have always told me, is that we all have different journeys, we're all different people. And
Yes.
it's easy to look at what someone else has achieved or what someone else has done and feel inadequate,
Mm.
particularly in academia, because we have people that are who've really achieved quite a lot. And it's easy to feel that you haven't met that same standard. But, we all have our own journeys. Life is tough. It doesn't go in a straight line, or it's not linear. It
Yes,
goes in a lot of bumps, ups and downs. And so
definitely.
we just have to keep persisting. Sometimes the journey will be slow, but we just have to keep on going on. And I'm not just saying this because someone told me. I know this from personal experience. Like, just
Mm.
thinking back, I think I'm doing PhD now, but it was a surprise to me as well that I ended up where I am now. Because the way I started, I didn't think I would end up here. I think if you ask anyone in my family, I think we're all very surprised that I'm doing PhD as well. Because I was not the very brightest student. And I even had to redo my grade 12 exam. So based off that history or where I was at that time, I wasn't looking as far as PhD, but here I am. So I think we just have to keep working at it. It won't be easy. We just have to keep going. And our journeys won't all be the same, but I think as long as you keep trying and as long as you keep fighting, eventually you'll get there, you know? So yeah, I think that's the best advice I can think of at the moment. So yeah.
It is the best advice. Thank you so much for that, because I think sometimes when people see channels like mine or when I speak specifically, they're like, wow, so lucky. This is so smooth sailing. But I've had
Mm,
other speakers in this series speak about how they thrive by doing the best bare minimum, like just the little
yeah,
things in life matter. And you're also
yeah.
speaking about something important, hopefully you've got young people listening in, how you had to redo some aspects of your final year of high school. Some
Mm,
people, when they don't make it the first time, they think it's done. But the system is also
yes.
created to help you to rewrite or to reroute
Mm,
and also to
yes,
refocus. Some
yes,
people
yes,
only fail when they get to varsity and they're like, doomsday.
yes,
Don't let any hiccup that looks like academic failure, hit you.
yes.
Yes.
Like you were saying, like a lot of people, I not met a lot of students also as being a tutor, being a teaching assistant, being a lecturer at university,
Mm,
who for the first time in their lives they failed the course or they failed something when they go to university. And it was
mm,
a big shock for them. But eventually they figured out that you can start again, you know, it's not the end of the world. And I think a lot of people are made to feel that once you fail something, that's it. But
mm,
it's not always the case. You can always find a way back. Like I said, I failed, I had to redo my grade 12 exams. I also didn't get into my preferred honors program because I said I was doing international
mm.
studies. And then I didn't get into that. So I had to do history. But eventually it all worked out to get me back into international relations. So there is definitely ways around it. And I think, like you're saying as well, students should just remember that it's not the end of the world if you get a failure along the way. Failure is a part of life,
Yes.
but there's ways to work around it and still achieve success as well.
I actually want to now pick from something you've just said.
Mm,
So I did do undergraduate majors in international relations and gender studies, but we were
yes.
told the prerequisites. And I canceled myself when I was applying for honors. Even though I knew I wanted a master's in international relations, I didn't even apply for the honors in international relations because I thought I wasn't good enough. So my trick was,
Mm,
I know gender will accept me. I'll get a distinction there. And then when I have my distinction in gender, I will go and apply for a master's in international relations. It worked for me, but it's dangerous. So that's another
mm,
story of someone who was even scared because they know the criteria. I'm
mm.
checking my results. They don't seem like they're there. I'm already rerouting before I even get rejected.
Exactly. So you see, these things happen. That's another.
Yes, yes. Not to say you don't love what you end up doing, but you're like, I
Mm,
need to find ways of navigating around this
yes,
rejection or this potential rejection as well.
yes, yes,
Wow.
yes, yes.
Yeah, this has been a very interesting discussion. Thank you so much as well. You also mentioned that journeys are different. I
Mm,
suffer sometimes because I think I've done so much and that I deserve to be in a better place, but then I'm not there. And then
mm,
sometimes I look at people that have better records than me in terms of their publications or teaching experience, and they might be in a space where someone might define as worse than me. And then I'm like,
mm,
what does this even mean? So just keep on trusting your struggle and keep on
mm.
finding strategies of trying to get to where you need to be, but don't let anything break you down and then stay
Yes,
there.
yes. That's very good advice. Like I couldn't say it any better. Mm.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Chris, for joining us today on the Research Notes podcast series. I'm Dr. Primrose Ejebima, and I'm on a mission to demystify the world of research by engaging in conversations with a diverse set of intellectuals, academics, industry professionals, as well as creatives. It's goodbye for now.